one reason he might want to engage is that it's not just our election that was compromised, but there's future elections, for instance, in Germany and France. And he might look at the international order and say, okay, you know, Russia meddled with our democracy, but, you know, we better hope that Angela Merkel, who he has basically endorsed for re-election, we better hope that they don't do the same in Germany. So let's try to put a light on what happened so it doesn't happen again.
But
he might be thinking down the road for
investigation. There's going to be a congressional investigation. Why not just wait for the investigation and see what?
Because it's unclear.
It becomes a lot harder for Trump to undo something publicly. If you announce an action against Russia publicly before you leave office, it becomes a little bit harder for Trump to undo it without looking like a stooge of Russia. So maybe that's their thinking.
Robert, you mentioned Donald Trump has a very, very different view of the world order than does Barack Obama. Spell that out a little. What's his world view?
Well, when you look at the consensus in Washington among both Republicans and Democrats, there's a hawkish position, generally speaking, toward Vladimir Putin and Russia and their intervention in Western Europe and Eastern Europe and their role in the world. With Trump, he sees the world in almost a tribal way, and he does not think world order needs to be the same way Republican hawks see it. And so with Russia, he thinks Russia, as I've been explained to it by several Trump insiders, is he sees Russia as a way to have a new relationship with China. For example, if he wants to go after China on currency manipulation, on different kinds of trade deals, having a stronger relationship with Russia in his private, personal view would make that kind of negotiation have a different dynamic. Same with negotiations with other countries. And he thinks not only Russians' petroleum reserves, but its projection in the world, if he brought it in as more of an ally, regardless of its intervention perhaps in the U.S. election, it would have benefits for U.S. negotiating. But again, he's against the wall in many respects with his own party.
So Kasie, Donald Trump, please meet John McCain.
Yeah, well, and look, I mean, a lot of these Republicans are careful about how they talk about Donald Trump domestically speaking, right? McCain ran for re-election. He wasn't out there every day trashing Donald Trump. He needed a lot of these Trump voters. But Russia is a place where it's not clear that Donald Trump lines up with a lot of his voters. And a lot of Republicans have this sense that this might be a place where he is out of step with the electorate. And, you know, Marco Rubio is a good example of this. He was one of the only Republicans who, during the election, was out there saying, hey, Republicans, this could happen to you. Stop, you know, saying that this is fine and that we're going to read John Podesta's emails. And I think he's picking up on something that's very real, and Bob touched on it, which is, you know, Republicans do not feel like Vladimir Putin is a good guy. And this, you know, what McCain and Graham are doing here, right? Fair. You know, McCain and Graham, you know, are essentially out there saying they're able to talk about this issue in a way that sets them up against Trump without having to say it out loud. They can, by taking these actions, by flying across the country, going to Ukraine, saying, look at all these things Vladimir Putin is doing. They are to and about Donald Trump without saying his name.